Hey, Walt here from WaltInPA.com with episode 17 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. And this episode, I have a handful of stuff for you. But before we do that, I kind of felt the urge to give you a bit of a disclaimer. And I don't know whether it's just because I've been listening to a lot of Road Gunner podcasts as of late, but I just felt this strong urge to tell you that I'm not a professional shooter. I do not offer professional advice. And you should take everything that I say with a grain of salt because it is my opinion and nothing more. I've been involved with firearms for about 5 years now. I think I've been I've been licensed to carry firearms in the state of Pennsylvania for probably 3.5 to 4 years, at which point I really started getting into the gun culture and doing a lot of reading, mostly on law, to make sure that I wasn't doing anything illegal or stupid and getting myself into trouble. So I've been doing a lot of reading over the last several years, and I didn't get into shooting very often until I guess about 2 years ago. I started shooting more and more, and I just recently got into USPSA shooting. Back in July, I shot my first match, and I just shot my 5th match just last weekend before, whenever I don't know when this is going to air specifically, so I don't know how many weekends ago it was, but I guess it was about a week and a half ago I shot my 5th match, and it will probably be my last regular match of the season due to just the way the Pennsylvania clubs work and how they wind down in the winter months. So, as I said, I am not a professional firearms anything. I am actually a draftsman by trade, and I spend the bulk of my day sitting in front of a computer punching in numbers and lines into AutoCAD. So, not a professional. Take what I say with a grain of salt. It is my opinion, and that's all it is. So, now that I feel kind of dirty giving you that disclaimer for some odd reason, but now that it's out of the way, let's get to talking about what I've got coming up in the show. And I've got a handful of stuff. I'm kind of pushing it, just like I have been the last few episodes, with time. As a result, I'm kind of shifting things around and just kind of playing with the numbers as far as number of feature topics, number of news items, to see just how close I can get this show to an hour and still make it flow. So bear with me as I try to figure out how this is going to work. I just find it's easiest to try to figure out how to make things work as I'm actually doing it, rather than rehearse it. And this is all kind of shooting from the hip, off the cuff kind of stuff. So with that said, the first thing I want to talk about is actually some news that I got from the Julie Golub website. I mentioned in the last episode that I pre-ordered Julie's book, and it's going to be coming out in February, I believe my shipping confirmation was. But anyway, there was a post on the Google Plus page for the book, explaining that the first 500 people that pre-ordered the book and requested a bookmark would get a bookmark signed and or personalized by Julie Golub at your request. So you basically head over to her website. I'll provide a link. Tick a couple of boxes, tell her what you want her to say. I left it blank because it's just kind of weird for me to tell someone what to sign on my bookmark, but I left that information blank, filled everything else out, and I'm positive I'm one of the 500. I'm not quite sure how fast these are going to go. I filled out my form immediately, just as soon as I saw it. So if you've pre-ordered Julie Golub's book, Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting and Competition, definitely fill out that little form and take advantage of the free bookmark with Julie's signature on it. So with that little bit of news out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about another little piece of information from last week. At the end of the show last week, I talked about my experience with pocket carry and a bit of an issue that I'm having with a DeSantis Nemesis pocket holster. Well, I had some feedback. The first piece of feedback came from the Herf Doctor handle on Twitter, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name, and since I'm doing this on the fly, I don't want to have to stop and try to look it up. I apologize if I don't remember. I don't remember your name. I just know you're a Herf Doctor, and I talk to you all the time, and you're a regular listener, and I feel so horrible for forgetting your first name. But at any rate, Herf Doctor suggested that I stick a piece of plastic inside the holster, maybe a small piece of hard plastic. And immediately when I heard hard plastic, I was thinking Kydex, and maybe epoxying it over top of the seams to sort of bridge those two little ruts that the rear sight has dug into the pocket holster, which should actually work out really well. And it seems like a good idea on the surface, although I don't know that I want to go tinkering with something that is as important as a pocket holster. I mean, it seems like a simple enough solution, and the epoxy should hold and bite really well, and that piece of plastic shouldn't come out, but I don't know that I want to go adding material. Another suggestion that I got from JP over at Empty Mags was that maybe I should cut away that part of the holster with just a simple pair of scissors and then re-stitch it to reinforce it. So, you know, there's another option for sort of a DIY solution to this problem that I'm having. But JP was kind enough to send me an audio clip with some suggestions in it, so I'm going to play that for you now, and when we come back we'll dive right into the news.
Hey Walt, this is Jason at Empty Mags. I wanted to just share a couple thoughts that I had real quick regarding the issue that you're having with your DeSantis pocket holster. If it were me, the first thing that I would try is getting a pair of scissors and actually cutting away the material that's getting snagged on the rear sight, and then taking a needle and some thread and then reinforcing the new edge that was created. If that doesn't work for you, the second suggestion that I have is actually just taking 10 or 15 bucks and buying the Uncle Mike's pocket holster. I actually bought a Uncle Mike's pocket holster. I believe it's size number 1 for my bodyguard, and I've been using it every day for the last 10 months, and it is just barely coming around to where it's actually showing some pocket wear and showing that it's been used. I've actually been very, very impressed with it, and it's been holding up extremely well, and I think it would probably be a great holster for you. I've had a lot of good luck with it, so I hope that helps. We'll talk to you later.
Well, you've just heard from JP from the Empty Mags podcast on his suggestion on how I should resolve the issue I'm having with my DeSantis Nemesis pocket holster. And the piece of advice I think I'm going to take is just looking into an Uncle Mike's holster. Jason seems to think very highly of the holster, and if for no other reason, I think it would be nice to have a spare holster lying around, just in case one gets beat up, or in case I really botch a DIY fix. So I'll start using the Uncle Mike's holster as a primary, and then maybe I'll start screwing around with the DeSantis to see what I can make it do, see if I can fix the issue. Another thing that I was thinking about doing was just contacting DeSantis, explaining my situation. Maybe I got the wrong size holster or something. It was handed to me by the gun shop owner that I purchased my Smith & Wesson bodyguard from, so there is an off chance that he handed me the wrong holster. If maybe it was designed for the LCP, and by sticking the bodyguard in there it causes problems, and maybe there is something specific for the bodyguard pistol and the large rear sights. So there's some advice if you ran into the same problem that I did. There's a handful of solutions. So with all that said, let's roll right into the news. Well, it is time for the news, and earlier on I told you that I was going to be playing around with the numbers. In this episode I'm only going to cover 2 pieces of news, and I'm going to roll into 3 pieces of featured content. So the first piece of news, when I saw this come across Google Reader, I got a perma smile on my face as I read the whole thing. It just kind of made me happy, not because it happened, but the end result. And the news article comes from comonews.com, and it is entitled "Police: Boy Shoots Mom's Attacker with BB Gun." This was published on November 22nd. And it goes on to say, Bellingham, Washington, a man accused of assaulting a woman was shot in the face with a BB gun by the woman's 11-year-old son. That's the part that made me smile. Investigators said Paul R. Newman was intoxicated when he came home, kicked in the door to the victim's bedroom, and attacked her. The 45-year-old man rents a room in the victim's home in the Roosevelt neighborhood, police said. Newman, who was apparently angry because he believed his room had been messed with, began choking the victim, detectives said. The commotion woke the victim's son, who saw the man attacking his mother. The boy began yelling at Newman to stop. He was yelling at my mom, and then he was like on top of my mom, holding her down, and then I told him to get off my mom, Kobe Sturgeon said. And when the man didn't listen, Kobe struck the man with a board. I said, "Get off my mom," and he didn't do nothing, Kobe said. So then I took the board and I broke it over his head, and then he still kept on doing what he was doing to my mom. Newman then turned on the boy and chased him out of the house, investigator said. Once Newman ran outside, the boy managed to lock the door. Newman tried to climb back inside through an open window as the victim struggled to shut it. He grabbed the arm of the woman who couldn't shake free of the man. That's when the boy came into the room with a BB rifle, investigator said. Newman, upon seeing the weapon, began threatening to kill both the woman and the boy. The boy then opened fire, hitting Newman in the face as many as 4 times, investigator said. He kept on hurting my mom, Kobe said, so I went and grabbed my BB gun and I said, "Get off my mom, get off my mom." And I said, "Get off my mom," and then I shot him with my BB gun. The woman and the boy managed to run to the neighbor's home and call 911. Newman was taken to an area hospital to be examined. He was arrested for investigation of felony assault and 2 counts of harassment. The victim, who sustained non-life-threatening injuries, was taken to the area hospital for treatment. Meanwhile, police credited Kobe for ending a dangerous situation. "It's just what I had to do to help my mom and me," Kobe said. So, you know, it really sucks that the mother got put into this situation by this deadbeat. But, you know, it really put a smile on my face that the 11-year-old boy stepped up and did what he had to do to protect his mother and himself. And he shot the bad guy 4 times in the face with a BB gun. That's awesome. You know, violence is not awesome, but when you have a child that has enough common sense that he sees a dangerous situation and he tries to resolve it, you know, before it escalates and becomes really bad. You know, I think that the boy really needs to be commended. I think he did a great thing in helping his mother, and he did a great thing in resolving the situation. Bashing the guy over the head with a board, getting him to let his mother go and chase him was, you know, it was kind of a dangerous thing to do. I mean, the guy chases him, he gets out of the house, he turns around, locks the door. Bad guy's outside, and, you know, bad guy still hasn't had enough and tries to get back in the house, and, you know, he got what he deserved. You know, I guess he's kind of lucky he didn't get blasted in the eye and lose one, like the guy from that Christmas Story, but or the kid from the Christmas Story. But anyway, the guy got what he deserved, and I'm really glad that the younger boy was able to take charge of the situation and protect his mother. That, you know, I really think that's a good thing. I think he did a good job. You know, he should be commended for that. That's awesome. The second and last piece of news for the episode comes from ToledoBlade.com. This was published on November 28th, and it is entitled "Store Clerk Shoots, Kills Robbery Suspect." And it goes on to say, when Lamar Allen and another man entered a North Toledo carryout Monday and allegedly threatened a clerk with firearms and allegedly began emptying the register of cash, the clerk was ready for them. Allen, 25, whose last known address is blah blah blah, was killed by the clerk about 9:45 a.m. at the Express Carryout on Mulberry Street in an exchange of gunfire. Shot more than once, he collapsed by the counter. The man with him fled. The clerk, whose name was not released, was uninjured but shaken, Toledo police said. There's always a gun in the store behind the counter, a 9mm we keep for protection, store owner Mamoun Awad said. Wow, I butchered that name. Anyway, we feel good that our employee had something to defend himself with, because if he couldn't, it could have happened another way. He was very lucky. They shot at the clerk a lot. Police did not say who shot first, citing an ongoing investigation. They are treating the incident as self-defense, Toledo Police Sergeant Joe Hefferman said. They have questioned the clerk and he is not in custody, he added. Mr. Awad said that the clerk, who is 27, called Mr. Awad's brother soon after the store opened and told him there was a robbery, that 2 guys came in with shotguns and that he had to shoot one. Sergeant Hefferman said that it was unclear whether shotguns were involved, saying only that each man who entered the store had some type of firearm, and that the clerk and at least one other man one of the men exchanged fire. The clerk was alone at the store at the time of the robbery, police said. James Jones, 45, a neighbor, said that he was making a phone call when he heard gunshots between 9:30 a.m. and 9:45 a.m. So this happened in broad daylight, in the a.m. hours. I thought someone is trying to rob someone, said Mr. Jones, who has lived in the neighborhood for 20 years. I was afraid for my safety. If you live here, you've got to be, and it's getting worse. The robbery attempt was caught on a store video camera, and forensic experts were reviewing the tapes. The police did not release the video on Monday. During the morning, about 30 people gathered outside the store discussing the incident. The crowd fell silent when Lucas County Coroner's Office employees carried Allen's body out of the store around 11:20 a.m. They then slowly dispersed at about 12:30 p.m. Allen leaves behind a large family that includes 16 siblings, 10 nephews, and 3 nieces, says Kenyetta Retief, 29, a sister. He is gone, but he is not forgotten, Miss Retief said. He loved football, and he loved his nieces and nephews. Allen, who had felony convictions, had been released October 7th from the Lucas County Jail, where he was booked after being arrested and accused of disorderly conduct and failure to display a license plate, according to jail records. He was also facing a felonious assault charge for allegedly shooting a girl in the hand during an altercation in June. It was unclear whether the second man who entered the store was hit by a bullet or got away with any cash. He was last seen running toward Stickney Avenue, said police, who noted that they did not have an identification of the man other than he is black and was wearing a mask. It is scary, Mr. Awad said of the incident. I don't know what we can do more. We already have 2 police officers working part-time, and we have a security camera. Mr. Awad went on to say that he and his brother have owned the store since 2006, and until the fatal shooting occurred, they had experienced only one minor security problem. He did not specify what those issues were. Sergeant Hefferman said that the area where the fatal shooting occurred is known as a high crime area, but that the store does not have a history of major police issues. So, you know, this happened in broad daylight, and you wonder why. You know, if you have ever wondered why people leave their homes with a gun in their pocket or on their hip or in their purse or their fanny pack or in their briefcase or, you know, whatever, however they carry, you know, this is a prime example of why people choose to do the things that they do and choose to protect themselves. You know, some innocent bystander could have easily walked into the store while the gunfire was erupting, and, you know, the situation could have been even worse than it already was. And it was already pretty bad. So, you know, this guy is, you know, it's a shame anyone had to die, but he came out of prison for shooting someone else in the hand. He's obviously got a police record, and he was a dangerous individual. So, and, you know, I don't know. It's kind of callous to say, but maybe the world is better off without him. So I'm glad that the store clerk made it out okay, and he didn't have any serious injuries. And, you know, I hope they catch that second guy. The first guy, well, he shouldn't be a problem anymore. So it's calloused and it's cold-hearted, and it probably makes me sound really bad, but, you know, when you get involved with this type of thing, and there's the potential to end another individual's life, you know, maybe you do need to be a little cold-hearted and calloused in the way you deal with that individual, or the way that individual expires. So, all in all, the clerk got out okay, so I'm happy with the situation, how it reads. Just as long as he didn't do anything wrong, didn't fire first, or however, you know, as long as the investigation comes out okay for him, I'm happy. For the featured content portion of this podcast, I have 3 pieces of content that I found through Google Reader that I thought you would be interested in. Now, unlike the news, I don't read these in full, and the objective here is to give you just enough information that your interest is piqued, and you go check it out for yourself, and you view the blog, or you view the podcast, or listen to the podcast, and you comment on it, and you get involved. But basically, you know, I just want to kind of get the juices flowing and kind of get you interested in checking out these different pieces of featured content. And this time around, I'm featuring content from a blog that I've never talked about before, and that is In Jennifer's Head. Now, I don't remember exactly where I came across this blog the very first time. I think the credit goes to JP from Empty Mags, and a Google Plus conversation that went back and forth between he and Jennifer, and which ultimately led me to finding her blog, in which I subscribed, and I keep an eye on it from time to time. And this one article just happened to catch my eye, and it's really interesting. And what it boils down to is Jennifer was at a social gathering, and she makes it very clear that it wasn't a gun gathering. It was just a sort of a vague, generic social gathering that she was at. And her and another woman got to talking about guns. And the other woman made the remark that she wouldn't carry a gun because she would probably use it. And Jennifer goes on to say that it's a good thing to have the gun in the event that you ever need it. And they go back and forth a little bit, and the woman says that she really doesn't need a gun because she can just kind of use her attitude to fend off anyone with ill intentions. And the funny part of the whole back and forth conversation on the blog is that the woman decides to show off her talent, and she kind of gives Jennifer the look. And Jennifer seems oddly confused by the look that the woman is giving her, and doesn't realize what she's doing until the woman crowds her personal space, in which case she kind of backs away, and the woman feels triumphant. But it's really interesting the way it goes back and forth, and how this woman feels as though just giving someone a look can kind of push away any kind of trouble that's heading her way. And I've seen this to an extent. Growing up in the neighborhood that I grew up in when I was younger, a lot of the mothers felt the same way. I had one friend who, his mother she was a bit of a badass. You didn't mess around with her. You didn't give her a hard time. You didn't give her any lip, because that when she gave you that look, you could potentially find yourself in a bad situation. I mean, and it wasn't just because you got the look. There was a level of respect there too. I mean, we knew the woman, we respected the woman. She was awesome, but you didn't cross her. You didn't get lippy with her, and you knew that if you ever saw that look, that good things weren't about to happen. And it was a common trend throughout the neighborhood. So all of the kids knew this woman. They respected her, and they didn't give her any lip. And had they ever gotten the look, they backed away. And I don't know, maybe it gave her the false sense of security that she could repel any danger or attitude or whatever the case may be. And it was the same thing with a lot of mothers in the neighborhood, because at this point in time, you didn't get lippy with the mothers of your friends. Not because your friends would give you a hard time or anything. Well, they would, but you knew and you respected these people. And I don't want to get into a story about how I walked up a snow-covered hill both ways to get to school and kind of things like that, and make myself feel really old. But things were a little bit different when I was younger, in that the parents of your friends would correct you if they found you doing something stupid. So you gave these mothers a lot more respect than you would just the average person off the street. And I don't know whether that sort of, he gave these women a false sense of security, but they all seem to have the same outlook, in that if anything were about to go down, they could just kind of puff out their chest and stare down the person that was causing the issue, and everything would sort of resolve itself. But in reality, it doesn't work that way. I mean, it works when you know the other person and there's a level of respect there. But when the other person is a criminal, or they have just really bad intentions, there is no respect there. So that stern look really isn't going to get you anything. I mean, it maybe someone that maybe a bad guy that doesn't stand up for themselves, or that's easily intimidated, will back down and pick a weaker target. But in the grand scheme of things, I really don't think that a look is a good idea as a means of defending yourself. And this was a really interesting article. There's a lot of really good stuff in the comments section. So If all of this seems intriguing to you, head on over, read the article in full, and then start reading through the comments, because there's a lot of great stuff in there, and they explain the situation a lot better than I can, and I'm trying to be really vague so that you go there yourself and check it out, but it is definitely worth reading, so head over to In Jennifer's Head and check it out. For the second piece of featured content, I have a blog that I've featured numerous times. In fact, I've featured it so many times that the author, Miguel, from Gun Free Zone, has threatened to start charging me for content. It's a joke. Miguel's a great guy. I really don't think I'm going to start seeing invoices show up in my inbox. But Miguel does some really interesting stuff, and he posted something recently that was just fantastic. You know, it made me laugh. It intrigued me. And, you know, I thought I would share it. And basically, it is an article on IDPA and becoming a safety officer. And the article is entitled, Going IDPA Postal, TSSA Style. And the article explains a recent match in which new safety officers were kind of put to the test. Now, these individuals were going through training to become safety officers to run IDPA matches. Now, all of the seasoned safety officers took on the role of problematic shooters, and they were giving the new safety officers a hard time. They were doing things, they were doing unsafe things in a safe enough manner for the environment, and you know, they were strategically doing things that the safety officers should have seen and caught, and in which case all of them did. But you know, basically, they were just being the shooters that you don't want to be an SO for. And there's some video associated with it, with different stages being run, and one new safety officer just gets reamed a little bit for giving a command that he shouldn't have. And you know, it's just some really interesting stuff. And one of the reasons why it interests me most is because I want to get involved as a range officer for USPSA. And I've been looking into trying to find a seminar in the area so that I can go and I can be certified and I can volunteer to do a little bit more in the USPSA sport, because I really do enjoy it, and I would like to get an inside look at how things work and just kind of bump up my level of volunteerism so that, you know, I can just be more, you know, I can play a bigger role in the grand scheme of USPSA. So even though the IDPA and USPSA are not the same, this article kind of intimidated me a little bit, because I can just imagine the place where I take the seminar doing the very same thing to me, and how stressful the whole situation can be. And it was really cool to see other people kind of get stressed out and see how they handled the situation. Again, I don't know that I'd really want to go through it, but if it's a necessary part of becoming a good, solid range officer or safety officer, this is very, very beneficial. So definitely head over to Gun Free Zone, check it out, and see what you could potentially face as a brand new safety officer or a seasoned safety officer, because I guess regardless, you're going to experience these things at one point in time or another as a safety officer in the sport. So check it out. Enjoy the video clips and some of the photos, and comment away. For the last piece of featured content, I have a blog post that can be credited to Miguel over at Gun Free Zone. He's the one that pointed me to this. I was reading through my RSS subscription to Gun Free Zone when I came across an excerpt of a blog post from a different individual on their first IDPA match. So I clicked through and I started checking it out. And this comes from George over at the Newbie Shooter blog, newbieshooter.com. And basically, it is his first IDPA match, and it's just awesome. I mean, reading through this, you know, I felt like I was there. It's written well, and it just related to me and my situation really well. It goes on to explain how he got into shooting USPSA and his personality type, and we're very similar in that he didn't want to go to his first IDPA match by himself. I didn't want to go to my first USPSA match by myself. He couldn't find anyone to go with, so he wound up going on his own. I couldn't find anyone to go with, so I wound up going on my own. And just there's a lot of similarities here where he experienced one thing and it was a mirror image of what I experienced in my own USPSA match. So he goes on to say that, you know, he goes through the safety briefing, he feels prepared, he's got a game plan mapped out for this first stage, the buzzer goes off, and it's kind of like deer in the headlights. Just, you know, panic washes over him, and he just goes blasting. And the very same thing happened to me at my USPSA match. I kind of panicked initially, and my entire game plan went right out the window. It was just incredible. I had a game plan mapped out. I was ready to go. When that buzzer sounded, I forgot about it all, and I just started shooting things as I saw them. The game plan just fell apart. And, you know, he breaks down the stage, you know, how he shot the stage, you know, what was going through his mind, and then he goes on to the next stage that he shot and how that just totally fell apart. And it was the same thing when I shot. So there was a lot of back and forth. As I'm reading the blog post, I'm thinking, wow, you know, that happened the same way to me, and it just kind of brought back a lot of fond memories. I mean, the first match that I shot was abysmal. It was horrible, but it was a ton of fun. And reading through this blog post, you can tell that George had a blast. He had an absolute great time, and he's going to be going back and shooting again and again. You know, for the foreseeable future, he's going to be shooting IDPA. And the same thing happened to me with USPSA. I went alone. I shot horribly. I shouldn't say he shot horribly, but my first stage was just atrocious. I got progressively better as the day went on. The nerves kind of went away, but it was really interesting comparing notes, his first experience to my first experience, and it was just a fun read. It was just written really well. It was a lot of fun, and you should definitely head over to newbieshooter.com and check out George's first IDPA match. Well, it is time for the cigar and drink pairing of the episode. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the show because I'm very passionate about cigars, and this is my opportunity to kind of mix two passions into one podcast and, you know, not only talk about guns but talk about cigars as well. Now, for the beverage portion of the show, I have some good and bad news. The bad news is that I'm doing coffee once again. The good news is that I'm finally out of that Caribou breakfast blend coffee. We went through all 80 K-Cups. It took forever, but we were through that box of K-Cups and we're on to something new. Over the weekend, my wife was out and picked up some Dunkin' Donuts Original Blend K-Cups for us to enjoy for the next week or so. And I decided to fire up the Keurig and give it a shot with the Oliva Serie O that I'm smoking now. This is the Churchill size cigar, and I believe it's a 50 by 7. These are like wildly popular cigars. You can get them practically anywhere, and the price ranges wildly. In a local cigar shop, you might be able to pick them up for $7.50. Online, you can probably get them as low as about $6 a single, if not a little bit less. And they're just really popular among any cigar shop that has an Oliva account. I don't know when these cigars came out initially, but in around 2005 they got a very good rating from Cigar Aficionado, and they've been very, very popular ever since. The Oliva Serie O features a Nicaraguan Habano wrapper. It's all Nicaraguan binder and fillers, and everything except for the wrapper comes from the Oliva farm in Nicaragua. I'm pretty sure that the wrapper comes from someone else, because I don't think Oliva does much wrapper leaf, if any at all. And the Oliva family is, I believe they're the second largest tobacco grower in Nicaragua, and I think they're like right behind Nestor Plasencia, who owns just a tremendous factory and tobacco fields. But at any rate, the cigars are very popular, and they have a spicy flavor profile to them. They're medium to full bodied. They smoke really well. I haven't run into any problems. They burn nice and even. They have a nice tight compacted ash. They don't make much of a mess. Some cigars, you know, you get the ash dropping in your lap unexpectedly. In this case, I haven't had any of that. They produce a good full dense smoke, coats the palate well, nice rich flavor profile. Now actually the part of the cigar that I like most is the spicy component. It has like a woody, kind of a spicy flavor. and it's not pairing extremely well with the coffee. The coffee seems to be really rich and has a very earthy, kind of a dark flavor to it. I don't add any creamer or sugar or anything to my coffee. I drink it black, and it seems to be washing out that bit of a spicy component that I like so much in the cigar. So the pairing is not ideal. However, it is working fairly well. I just kind of like hot beverages, mainly coffee, with cigars. I think that they pair really well, but in this case, the pairing is decent, but not ideal, I don't think. I think something a little sweeter would go better with the cigar. You would get more of a, I think it would enhance the spicy component just a little bit. But these cigars you can find practically anywhere. In any cigar shop you walk into, if you see Oliva anything, you're probably going to find the Series O on the shelves somewhere. Now, my preferred merchant is Buckhead Cigar. I didn't have the opportunity to reach out and talk to Mike today to find out, you know, if he had them in stock, what his pricing was, or anything like that. But being an Oliva retailer, I would imagine he has plenty of the Series O. So if you're interested in trying them, and you would like to order from my preferred retailer, I would suggest getting a hold of Mike over at Buckhead Cigar. You can do that a couple of ways. The first way you can do that is by phone. Mike's phone number is 404-844-0400. You can also contact him on Twitter at Buckhead Cigar. He's also on Google Plus as Buckhead Cigar, and he has a Facebook account at Buckhead Cigar. So there are a variety of ways to get in touch with him if you like to get pricing on the cigar, or if you want to order him, just pick up the phone and call. You know, 9 times out of 10, Mike is there. He'll take your order, and you'll have your cigars in short order. So that is the cigar and drink pairing of the episode. Again, the Oliva Series O. This is the Churchill, which I believe is a 50x7, and Dunkin' Donuts original coffee. This is the part of the show where I do a featured discussion topic. And I was really grasping at straws today. Around noon, I guess it was on my lunch break, and I was trying to finalize my show notes. And at this point in time, I had no idea what cigar I was going to do for the cigar and drink pairing, and I had just no idea what to talk about for the discussion topic. And I posted something on Twitter to the effect of, you know, I'm going to be recording this podcast in a couple of hours, and I still have no idea what I'm going to talk about. And I got a Twitter response from Joe asking me to talk a little bit about the holster that I use for USPSA shooting. Or actually, he asked me to talk about my holster for my M&P because he was looking at getting something as well. And I told him that, you know, I don't use a concealed carry holster for the M&P. It's just my range gun. The only thing I have and use is an outside the waistband holster for USPSA. And he said, you know, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So, you know, I'd appreciate it if you talk about that. So, with nothing else to talk about, let's talk about my hodgepodge USPSA setup, which consists of a couple of different brands of mag pouches and holster, and just there is no consistency. It's just kind of all over the place. So, before we get talking about the accessories, let's first talk about the gun. Now, the gun that I use is a Smith & Wesson M&P. It is a base model, full-size pistol. It's chambered in 9mm. It is empty. There's no mag in no magazine. There's nothing in the chamber. Rack it a couple of times. And I've been tremendously happy with this gun. I have run into a couple of problems. A while back, I packed my gun away for the winter. I guess this was a little over a year ago. And when I unpacked it to get back into shooting again, when the snow melted and the ice was clear, I noticed that I had a bunch of rust on the slide. So I contacted Smith & Wesson, and they were kind enough to completely replace it for me. They explained that it was just easier for them to give me a excuse me, a brand new slide rather than to refinish the one that I had, and that was completely fine by me. So I shipped the gun out. They replaced the slide. They sent it back to me, and I've been shooting with it ever since. Now, after I got the slide, or after I got the entire gun back, I ran into a slight problem, and I'm not quite sure how to show you this safely because the camera's directly in front of me, and I need to show you the front sight. But maybe we can do it this way. But at any rate, you'll notice that the rear sights are white, and the front sight is kind of dark. It's actually pink. There's a little dab of white paint in the sights, and that's kind of what makes up the dots. While I was shooting, excuse me, my throat's getting kind of dry from all this talking. But at any rate, as I was shooting the M&P one day, the white front sight dot just fell out. And I didn't want to have just a no dot in the front sight. So what I wound up doing was looking at some things online, and I found out that you can easily repaint the front sight with something like nail polish. So I went out to Walmart, and I'm like looking through the nail polish section, and I'm getting odd looks from all the women that are walking around as I'm picking up canisters of nail polish and trying to think, you know, what's nice and bright that will stand out. Well, I bought this what looked like neon green, and what wound up being way too dark. It didn't work, and then I just sort of was rummaging around in my wife's nail polish collection and wound up putting like a pink nail polish in there. It's really dark. In the daylight it pops a little bit, but you know, if you're standing in shade, it's really difficult to see, and I'm not happy with it. So I'm either going to need to repaint the front sight, which is simple. Just take a round toothpick, dip it into the nail polish, and then just kind of stand the gun up and dab it in there. The paint will roll down the toothpick and into the front side post. And then if you get anything on the outside, you could just take some nail polish remover and wipe it off. After the nail polish is good and dry, I just kind of took a cloth, dabbed a little bit of gun oil on it, and then wiped it over the front sight, so that if I took away the oil with the acetone or the nail polish remover, I was recoating the front sight with a little bit of oil to protect it and to prevent rust. So painting the front sight was easy enough. However, it's not ideal. I'm not completely happy with it. So at some point I may upgrade sights. I kind of want to put a fiber optic front on it, and I would really like to put an adjustable rear on it, even though I haven't had to do anything with the rear sight. I want the peace of mind of being able to easily adjust the rear sight, so I may at some point go with a fiber optic rear adjustable. Aside from that, the gun has been fantastic. It has performed really well for me. I haven't had any major issues at a match. Every now and again, you know, you have to do a tap, rack, bang procedure to clear a round that didn't fire or something, which could be, you know, the bulk ammunition that I'm buying, things like that. But the gun has been fantastic, and I've been really, really happy with it. Now, for the accessories, what this gun rides in is a Kydex outside the waistband holster, or actually it's just a hard plastic outside the waistband holster. It's a pancake style, which means that it's got a paddle on the rear, and it fits over top of your belt, and kind of it's got a little bit of a kind of a barb in here that catches the belt and prevents it from lifting out. The paddle portion rests against your hip. It's pretty comfortable. A lot of people don't seem to like these holsters. I'm not quite sure why. I mean, I haven't been doing a ton of USPSA shooting, but you know, the holster has treated me well. It hasn't caused any problems. It's comfortable. It could cover a little bit more of the gun. However, the trigger guard is covered, and it really hasn't been an issue. I don't remember what I paid for the holster. It was pretty inexpensive. If I had to guess, I'd say it was in the $16 to $20 range. And it was one of the very few holsters that the small gun shop that I purchased it from had for the M&P. And knowing that I was planning on shooting USPSA, they recommended this particular holster from their very limited stock of holsters. Most of what they had was I believe they were inside the waistband holsters and things like that. So I got what was available, and I've been using it, and I've been pretty happy with it. The mag pouches, however, are two different brands and two different styles. The first one that I picked up is an ITAC mag pouch. Same thing as the holster. Excuse me. It's a paddle style. Belt slips in between the paddle and the actual mag pouch, catches on a barb and doesn't lift out. It has an adjustment screw on it, and up until recently it's been performing really well for me. However, I have run into a bit of a problem with the mag's binding, and it's really not really a fault of the magazine pouch, it's a fault of the magazine, and it's probably user error that caused this problem. Shooting USPSA, you do a lot of dumping of mags on the ground and things like that, and I've got a bit of surface rust on the back side of this magazine, and it's got a little bit of a texture to it. I've tried wiping it off really well and coating it with oil, but there's still a bit of a texture here, and the texture seems to be holding up inside the magazine pouch, and it takes more force than I'm happy with to get it back out. And sometimes during a match I'm like really tugging on this thing to get it back out. I've got the adjustment screw on the magazine pouch all the way out, so the magazine is in there as loose as possible. Now, I bought this magazine pouch from the same place that I bought the holster, and it was one of the few magazine pouches that they had. Again, you know, they don't stock a ton of stuff for competitive shooting, but they recommended this particular mag pouch. They adjusted it for me. When I got it, it was great. You know, when the magazine was nice and smooth and there was no pitting in the steel. But apparently they make these in a couple different sizes, and this one I think is the tightest of the sizes. I'm not quite sure. There's like a grading, like 000, 001, and I think the other one's like 002. But this is the smallest of the three sizes that they had, and again, up until recently it worked really well for me. Now I'm not too happy with it. It could be better. It's just kind of binding. This was the first magazine pouch that I bought, and much like the holster, it was between probably $15 and $20. And when I went back to get a second one to shoot a USPSA match after I shot the first one with this and just it wasn't enough, they recommended that I just not buy another ITAC. This, you know, go online and buy some. You'll probably be happier with it. And what I wound up doing was picking up a Blackhawk holster, or a Blackhawk magazine pouch, and this works in one of two ways. You can either put it on with this little clip on the back, which acts much like the paddle does on the other, in that it slips down over the belt, and then there's this gigantic barb on the back side that hooks the belt and just doesn't come out. Sometimes it's a real pain to get on my belt, sometimes it's a real pain to get back off my belt, but the magazines seem to fit in here fairly well. I don't run into much issue with binding. However, even though this is it's said to be designed for the M&P magazines, it just feels universal. It just feels like there's too much slop in here. I can twist the magazines a little bit. You know, I think this is kind of a universal mag pouch for double stack magazines. I'm not tremendously happy with it, but it's kind of getting by. And actually, if I had to buy another one, I'd probably buy another ITAC at this point. I mentioned that there's another way to mount this. You don't need to use this clip. You can actually feed your belt through it. However, I just find it a bit of a hassle to take my belt off and put it through the mag pouch. Just like the other, it has a tension adjustment screw in the front, and you can make the mags nice and tight, or you can have them fairly loose. I want them so that I can turn the magazine pouch upside down and the mag won't fall out, but not much tighter than that. I want to be able to get the mags out nice and easy, but as long as they're not popping out when I'm running, I'm happy. This one rides a little bit closer to the body than the ITAC does. Ideally, I think I would want something that stands out just a little bit more, just for ease of use, but I think I paid $15 or $16 for this on Amazon. It's worked fairly well. However, I'm just not real crazy about the fit. If I could find something that fit better, I would be more happy with it. It's worked for me. However, again, it's just, I can twist the magazine around, and it's not just the tensioner. I mean, the tensioner seems to put tension on the front of the magazine, and the back is where all the play is, back in here. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of equipment, but you know, I'm not really interested in investing a ton of money on, you know, a speed belt and high-tech mag pouches and holsters. If anything, and maybe I'll upgrade the holster at some point, something that encases a little bit more of the gun. But it's not really necessary. I'm kind of happy with the Phobos. The mag pouches, I would be really happy with the ITAC if my magazine weren't pitted a little bit. But if I had to pick one over the other, I think the ITAC suits me better. As far as the pitting on the magazine goes, I really don't know what to do. I'm tempted to sand the back of the magazine down to smooth it out and then try to recoat it. I don't know whether it's going to require me to put a little bluing agent on it or what I'm going to need to do, because I'm going to take off whatever protectant is on there if I start sanding it. And I don't want the pitting to get worse because there's no protection. So I don't know what I'm going to do at this point. Fortunately, the USPSA season has come to a close, more or less, here in Pennsylvania, and I don't need to find a solution right now. The equipment gets me by. However, I could use some upgrades. So, if you're a USPSA shooter or an IDPA shooter and you shoot an M&P, I'd love to hear what you're carrying so that maybe I can have some better luck with something else that I order. And that is going to close it out for the featured discussion topic of the episode. Well, that is going to do it for episode 17 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltandPA.com. I want to thank you for the continued support. I've been getting some more views. I seem to be steadily increasing, which is fantastic. The feedback has been a little more free-flowing, and that has been fantastic as well. So again, if you've sat through the entire almost hour of the show, I want to thank you. You've made my day. For any reason, if for any reason you want to get in touch with me, suggestions on changes to the show, something you would like discussed, if you have a question or just a comment in general, you can get in touch with me in a variety of ways. You can go to my blog at waltandpa.com. You can leave a comment directly on this podcast post, or any post for that matter, and I do my best to respond to all comments. Just my little way of saying, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to comment, and I'll do my best to comment on your comment, just to let you know that I'm keeping an eye out for you. You can email me at walt@waltandpa.com. There's also a contact form on my blog if you'd rather just kind of fill that out and click send. You can get in touch with me on Twitter. I'm at WaltW. I'm on Facebook, Google+, just a variety of social media networks. So, don't be bashful. Reach out, talk to me if you feel so inclined. And again, I just want to thank you for sitting through episode 17 of Shooting the Breeze. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, I will catch you later.